Hello everyone. I'm going to start a series here, I think. Um, if it seems like in this video I'm reading from a script, it's because I am. I actually wrote an article for a blog a couple of months ago, and it was dealing with a subject that gets disregarded very often. Uh, a topic that seems to get little attention in the prepper community is your soil. We spend countless dollars and hours preparing our homes, our family, and our arsenal for the coming catastrophes, but we do little to prepare our soil. I know soil isn't as glamorous or as interesting as the guns and the knives are, but they're just as important. And depending on how you look at it, it may be more important. A lot of people out there are spending a lot of preppers are basing their YouTube channels on guns because that's what gets the most views and the most subscribers and what have you. And the dull things that seem dull and boring, not as glamorous like soil, kind of gets disregarded. Many preppers store away garden seeds of heirloom varieties, but we must remember that the soil is just as important as the seed, and your soil may not be adequate for production of crops when your life depends upon success. Even if you are currently successfully growing crops on your property, your crops may not fare as well as after fertilizers are no longer commercially available. Every plant that grows takes vital nutrients from the soil, and if that plant is never clipped, cut, or harvested, a fair amount of the nutrients are put back into the soil through decomposition of the plant, or from the manure of animals that are drawn to the plant for whatever reason, whether it be for food, shelter, nesting material, or other reasons. Little land these days is completely abandoned and allowed to grow in a natural setting. If a fairly large portion of your land is ignored and nature completely allowed to take over that land, odds are that your soil nutrient levels are at least good enough and likely are excellent. This video is for those of us who currently use our land. A teaspoon of soil contains literally millions of microorganisms of thousands of varieties. These microorganisms work together to maintain the ecosystem within the soil. The plant photosynthesizes sunlight into simple sugars, which are stored in the root system of the plants. The microorganisms then feed upon those sugars, which encourage them to reproduce through the high carbohydrate content. Each variety of these microorganisms has a different job. Some feed on insects, some on organic matter, some on toxins, some even feed on petroleum products, and the list goes on. After feeding on the preferred food, they convert the food into a form that is readily available as fertilizer for the plant. When the plant has an abundance of fertilizer in the root zone, it photosynthesizes more efficiently, providing more sugar for the microorganisms, and it just keeps going on in a cycle. When inadequate amounts of the preferred food are available for a microorganism, the numbers gradually either die or hibernate until the active members of that variety are low enough numbers to be sustained by the food that is present. If an abundance of a variety's chosen food is available, the population of that variety explodes. After the end of the world as we know it, unless the situation passes quickly, there will be little commercial fertilizer available, which means it will become necessary to make your own fertilizer through manure and other organic matter, such as leaves, grass clippings, potato peels, shredded twigs, etc. If your ground has been relying on synthetic man-made fertilizers for several years or more, odds are that the microorganisms that break down organic matter into fertilizers are not as plentiful as they should be. This means that organic matter in the soil will decompose very slowly and take a very long time to be converted to a form that can be used by the plant as a fertilizer. Synthetic fertilizers, man-made fertilizers, feed the plant directly, especially if it is in a liquid form. Organic fertilizers feed the soil, which then, through the microorganisms living there, feed the plant. This means that we get very fast results from synthetic fertilizers and slower results with organic fertilizers. In order to increase the numbers of these microorganisms, we have to provide them with plentiful amounts of their preferred food, which is organic matter. Now, if many people who live in a suburban environment setting, they're planning to convert their lawn into a garden. But the problem is that even many of us actually fertilize our lawns with synthetic fertilizers, and then we bag our clippings when we mow the lawn. We rake our leaves when they fall from the trees, and the soil, very little, if any, organic matter ever makes it to the soil. So the microorganisms that break down that organic matter gets down to a very, very low level. So when you find yourself relying upon organic matter to make fertilizer, the microorganisms that will convert that organic matter to a fertilizer just aren't plentiful enough. So for the first few years, when your life depends on it, you're finding that your crops just aren't up to par. Fertilizers, not only are they used by the plants and depleted in that way, some components of fertilizer, the most important, most plentifully needed component of fertilizer, nitrogen, is water soluble. So as it rains, it gradually leaches deeper and deeper into the soil, and eventually it's below a lower level than the root zone of the plant, so it's no longer beneficial to the plant. It can take several years in a bad situation when little food is available, and your life could depend on a strong crop, and you don't have years to wait. Because of this, you should begin adding organic matter to your soil now. Even in the case where if you're raising a garden already, unless you're using organic material in that garden, if you're just using synthetic man-made fertilizers, you're going to have the same problem that the people who are converting their lawns to gardens are going to have. So that the video doesn't get too long, I'm going to wrap up this part here, and there will be another part coming up where we'll pick up where we left off. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Rate, subscribe,
comment, and I'll do what I can to answer any questions or comments. Thank you very much.